All right, so today, let's dive into something that I think gets just about every entrepreneur's heart racing. Scaling up. It's
Yeah.
that exciting moment when your business is really taking off, and I think we can all relate to this, it can also feel like you're steering a rocket ship
Uh,
with a wonky
yeah,
joystick.
yeah, definitely.
So how do you maintain control? How do you keep your team productive and ensure that you're delivering top-notch service,
Mm.
even when your business is growing like crazy? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today.
It's interesting. The source that we're looking at today compares this phase of growth to what companies experience when they suddenly jump from like 50 to 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
It's a stage where a lot of unexpected problems can pop up, things that a lot of business owners just don't see coming.
It's like hitting a growth spurt,
Yeah.
but you don't have the right infrastructure in place to actually handle it. So what kind of problems are we talking about here?
Well, the source really dives into what happens when businesses expand, but without having the right systems in place. And they actually cite this really interesting example of a company where the sales team was out there promising all these features, but the product team hadn't even developed them yet.
Ouch. That sounds like a recipe for some serious customer dissatisfaction. So how do we avoid that kind of misalignment? The course has to have some solutions for us, right?
Absolutely. They break it down into three key areas: standardization, automation, and structuring your knowledge base. They argue that these are really the essentials for scaling without spiraling into chaos.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit.
hmm
What does standardizing processes actually look like in practice?
Well, the source points out that a lot of businesses start with a very organic approach, which works fine when you're small, but as you grow, those informal ways of doing things can become a real bottleneck. Imagine, for instance, that every salesperson has their own unique way of onboarding new clients. That might work for a team of 5, but what happens when you have 20 salespeople?
Yeah, you're going to have inconsistencies, longer onboarding times, probably some frustrated customers along the way.
Exactly, and that's just one example. The source argues that standardizing everything, from your sales process to your customer support interactions, is crucial for maintaining quality and efficiency as you scale. They even suggest using a platform like Atmaguru, which is specifically designed for creating a centralized knowledge base.
So it's like having a single source of truth
Hmm.
that everyone in the company can refer to.
Yeah.
No more digging through emails or trying to remember who said what in a meeting 3 months ago. I can see how that would be a game changer, especially for onboarding new team members.
That's a key point the source emphasizes. They highlight how standardized onboarding processes, potentially using tools like those offered by Atmaguru, not only help new hires get up to speed faster, but also free up existing team members to focus on other tasks.
It sounds like we're talking about creating systems that can essentially run themselves, or at least require minimal interventions. Is that where automation comes in?
Absolutely. The source is a big advocate for automating as many tasks as possible, particularly when it comes to things like data analysis and reporting. Imagine having real-time insights into your sales pipeline, customer satisfaction metrics, or even employee performance. That's the power of automation.
It's like having a dashboard for your entire business. You can instantly see what's working, what needs attention, and where the potential bottlenecks are. But wouldn't setting up all these systems be incredibly time-consuming, especially for a business that's already stretched thin?
It's definitely an investment. But the source argues that the long-term benefits far outweigh the initial setup time. They use this analogy. I found it quite striking. They compare setting up these systems to building a solid foundation for a house.
So you might not see the immediate results, but you're essentially future-proofing your business for sustainable growth.
Yeah.
You're laying the groundwork for a structure that can handle whatever comes next.
Precisely. And that's where the idea of structuring your knowledge base comes into play. The source suggests thinking of your company's knowledge as an asset, something that needs to be organized and accessible in order to be truly valuable.
This is making me think about all those times I've wasted trying to find a specific document or a piece of information. Imagine having a system where everything is clearly labeled, categorized,
Yeah.
and easily searchable.
The source actually suggests that a well-structured knowledge base can be one of the most valuable assets a company can have, especially as it scales. It reduces errors, streamlines training, and empowers employees to find the information they need to make decisions quickly and confidently. It's almost like you're building a library for your business.
Hmm.
But instead of books, you've got processes, best practices, all the essential information your team needs to be successful.
I like that analogy, and it seems like building that library early on would be a smart move.
hmm
But let's get down to brass tacks. How do you actually go about standardizing a process? Is it as simple as just writing everything down?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. The sorts breaks it down into a few key steps. First, you need to identify the core processes that are critical for your business. This could be anything from your sales funnel to your customer onboarding flow to how you handle product development.
Okay, so start with the processes that have the biggest impact on your business. The ones that really matter, then what?
Then you need to map out each step of the process in detail. Think of it as creating a flow chart that outlines every action, decision point, and potential outcome. The goal is to leave no room for ambiguity.
So everyone knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and what the expected outcome should be that makes sense. But wouldn't creating these detailed maps for every process be a huge undertaking?
It can be, especially if you're trying to tackle everything at once. The source suggests starting with the processes that are causing the most friction or where you're seeing the most inconsistencies. Maybe you're getting a lot of customer complaints about your billing process, or your sales team is struggling to close deals consistently. Those are good places to start.
So identify the pain points and prioritize based on what's causing the most headaches. I like that approach. It feels a lot less overwhelming than trying to boil the ocean.
Exactly. And once you've mapped out the process, the next step is to document everything in a clear and concise way. This is where tools like Atmaguru or even a simple internal wiki can be incredibly helpful. You want to create a resource that's easy to navigate, understand, and update as needed.
It's like creating a set of instructions anyone can follow, even if they've never done the task before. That's got to be incredibly valuable, especially as you're bringing on new team members.
The source actually argues that standardized processes are one of the best ways to empower your team. They free up brain power for more strategic thinking and creative problem solving because they don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel for every task.
I can see how that would boost productivity and morale. But I'm curious, what about those tasks that can be automated? How do you decide what to automate and what to leave to humans? That's a great question, and one that a lot of businesses grapple with. The source suggests focusing on tasks that are repetitive, time-consuming, or prone to human error. Things like data entry report generation or even certain aspects of customer support can often be automated with the right tools.
So you're essentially freeing up your team to focus on the tasks that require human creativity, empathy, or strategic decision-making. It sounds like a win-win situation.
Exactly. And the beauty of automation is that it can often be implemented incrementally. You don't need to overhaul your entire business at once. You can start with a few key processes and see how it goes. The source actually suggests experimenting with different tools and approaches to find what works best for your specific needs.
That makes sense. It's about being strategic and finding the right balance between human touch and technological efficiency.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the knowledge base. We touched on this earlier, but I'm curious to know more about how to actually structure it effectively.
The source offers some really practical advice here. They emphasize the importance of creating a system that's both comprehensive and easy to navigate. They suggest breaking down information into clear categories, using consistent labeling conventions, and leveraging search functionality to make it easy for people to find what they need.
So it's like designing a website with intuitive navigation and a powerful search engine. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to find the information they need without having to go on a scavenger hunt.
Precisely. And the source also highlights the importance of keeping your knowledge base up to date. They recommend assigning ownership to different areas and establishing a process for regularly reviewing and updating information to ensure its accuracy and relevance.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You need to treat your knowledge base as a living document that evolves as your business grows and changes.
Exactly. And they even suggest incorporating feedback mechanisms so that employees can contribute to the knowledge base and share their insights and best practices.
That's a brilliant idea. It turns your knowledge base into a collaborative resource rather than something that's dictated from the top down.
And that aligns perfectly with the idea of fostering a culture of continuous improvement, which the source argues is crucial for long-term success.
You know, this whole conversation is really making me think about how interconnected all these elements are. We're not just talking about isolated strategies. It's about creating a holistic system for growth. But it all seems to stem from that initial step of standardizing your processes.
You hit the nail on the head. Standardization is the foundation upon which everything else is built. It's what enables you to scale efficiently, maintain quality, and empower your team. Without that foundation, you're essentially building your business on shifting sand.
That's a powerful image. So for our listeners who are just beginning to think about scaling their business, where's the best place to start? What's that one actionable step they can take today?
I'd say the first step is to choose a process that's causing you pain right now. something that's slowing you down, creating bottlenecks, or leading to inconsistent results.
Okay, so pick that one process that's keeping you up at night, then what?
Take some time to map out that process in detail. Write down every single step, every decision point, every potential roadblock. Don't leave anything out.
Get it all out of your head and onto paper or a whiteboard or whatever works for you. You got it, then what?
Once you've got that process mapped out, look for opportunities to standardize. Can you create a checklist, a flow chart, a set of clear guidelines that anyone can follow?
So it's about taking something that's currently messy and turning it into a system that's repeatable and predictable.
Exactly. And even that one small step can have a ripple effect throughout your entire business. It can free up your time, reduce errors, and create a more consistent customer experience.
That's a great place to start, but I think it's important to acknowledge that this is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah,
You're not going to achieve perfect standardization overnight.
absolutely. It's about continuous improvement. You standardize one process, then another and another. And as you do, you learn and refine your approach along the way.
It's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you get.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all this talk of standardization and automation, I want to bring it back to something we discussed earlier, the human element.
Ah, yes. It's easy to get so focused on systems and processes that we forget about the people who make it all happen. What does the source have to say about that?
Yeah, it feels like we've been kind of geeking out on systems and processes and automation.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those are incredibly important, of course. But, at the end of the day, it's people who are driving these businesses.
Right. Right.
So how do we keep that human element front and center
Yeah.
as we scale?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. The source actually dedicates a whole section to this. The importance of company culture and leadership. During this growth phase, they argue that as you scale, it's more important than ever to be really intentional about maintaining the values and principles that got you to where you are today.
So it's not just about scaling your systems. It's about scaling your culture as well.
Yeah.
But how do you actually do that in practice? Especially when you're bringing on all these new people who might not be as familiar with this, the company's DNA.
Well, the source offers some really concrete suggestions here. They talk about the importance of clear communication, both from leadership down to employees, and vice versa. They also highlight the value of creating opportunities for team bonding and social interaction, even as the company grows.
So it's about finding ways to maintain that sense of community and that shared purpose, even as the headcount increases. Are there any specific examples from the source that stand out to you?
Yeah, they mention a company that implemented this really cool mentorship program where new hires are paired with more experienced employees. And it not only helps with onboarding and training, but it also fosters a sense of connection and belonging.
Oh, I love that. It's about weaving that human connection into the very fabric of the company. But I'm also thinking about the flip side of this. As you scale, there's this risk of becoming more impersonal, more corporate, more, bureaucratic. How do you avoid that?
The source emphasizes the importance of empowering employees. Even as the organization grows larger, they suggest pushing decision-making down to the lowest possible level, giving people autonomy and ownership over their work.
So it's about resisting that urge to micromanage and instead trusting your team to make decisions. But that requires a certain level of confidence in your hiring process, doesn't it? You need to know that you're bringing on people who are capable and aligned with your values.
Absolutely. The source actually talks about the importance of defining your company values very clearly, and then using those values as a guide for all your hiring decisions.
So it's not just about finding people with the right skills. It's about finding people who are a good cultural fit. That makes a lot of sense. But I imagine it's a constant balancing act, especially as you scale. How do you stay true to those core values while also adapting to the changing needs of a growing business?
The source suggests something I found really interesting. They recommend regularly revisiting those core values, asking whether they still resonate and whether they're being reflected in the day-to-day operations of the business.
So it's about having that ongoing conversation, that willingness to evolve, while still staying grounded in what matters most.
Exactly. They emphasize that growth for the sake of growth isn't always a good thing. It's about growing in a way that's sustainable, both for the business and for the people who make it up.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground. From standardizing processes, to automating tasks, to nurturing company culture. But if there's one key takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
I think the most important message is that scaling doesn't have to be chaotic or overwhelming with the right mindset and a willingness to be intentional about your growth. You can scale your business in a way that's both successful and fulfilling.
And remember, It's not about achieving some perfect state of scalability. It's an ongoing journey of learning, adapting, and refining your approach.
And don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. The beauty of this whole scaling journey is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What works for one business might not work for another.
So it's about finding what works for you, your team, and your unique circumstances. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Ooh, I love a good challenge.
Think about one aspect of your business that feels particularly chaotic or inefficient right now. It could be your onboarding process, your customer support system, or even just the way you manage your to-do list.
Yeah, choose something that's causing you frustration or stress, something you wish you could improve.
And then take a few minutes just to brainstorm some ideas for standardizing or automating that process. Don't worry about creating a perfect solution right now. Just start thinking about ways to make it more streamlined and efficient.
Yeah, even small changes can have a big impact. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself with how much you can accomplish.
So there you have it, your homework assignment for the week. But we don't want this conversation to end here. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your aha moments, and even your struggles with scaling. Connect with us on social media using hashtag #DeepDiveScaling.
And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of entrepreneurs out there who are facing the same challenges and celebrating the same victories. Let's learn from each other and support each other along the way.
Until next time, happy scaling, everyone.